Okay. Hello and good morning. I actually don't even know if it's morning. Anyways, sorry about the noise. I had my window down because I thought it was going to be a little too warm. We'll just do that. And we'll do this. So today, as I thought I was prepared, but I'm not prepared, we're going to do a little bit of talking first. So first off, I am not grounded at all. I say at all, but I kind of am. I have been going through whatever retrograde crap we're going through, and it's kicking my ass. It's kicking my ass. So I'm a little degrounded, but at the same time, I'm coherent. So if the message starts to get a little fuzzy, well, that's because my brain starts getting a little fuzzy. Well, then the other thing I found out too is sometimes I get an idea to do a video, but I find if I actually let it sit and percolate for a little bit, sometimes more information comes out. Or I develop more knowledge, or I learn something new. But I think this egg is time to hatch. So today we're going to talk about breaking reality, or breaking the matrix, if you would. So let's suspend disbelief for a minute, completely suspend belief and disbelief. They don't exist. Let's just pretend, let's make it a prompt. We're in the Matrix. Say you haven't seen the movie. The Matrix is essentially a video game or a software program meant to keep our minds busy. It's kind of like VR. You essentially download your mind into this software and you play reality. But reality is fake. It's a software program that is designed to keep you busy and distracted from the truth of reality. That's the premise of the first movie. So we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit, but in a different way. So again, what I'm speaking about is nothing really new. Obviously, this movie's been around since the 1990s. Since the 90s. I've seen all four, 1 through 4. And I'm actually going to be doing a video on them later, but what I'm talking about is the systems. Alright, brain, spirits, help me out here. Help me focus and ground a little bit better so the message actually makes sense. We're talking about systems. So in the Matrix is perceived as evil, perceived as negative, and the whole goal is to escape it and destroy it. Or at the very least, free your mind from it. The Matrix in the movie always kind of exists. Although they do find a way to take it down or change it, it just comes back, or in a different form. Because, energy can't be destroyed. So the Matrix never truly goes away. They just continuously are stuck in this battle of existing in the Matrix and functioning in the Matrix while at the same time... in that world, it's actually literally two separate worlds. There's the Matrix and then there's the real world. Our world is more like the Matrix overlaid on top of the real world. So unfortunately, you can't function yet in the real world without functioning in the Matrix, kind of. When I say real, it's all figurative. Again, we're playing with the rules of reality here. When I say words, they're not concrete, it's more like fluid. So when I say reality, it's not reality. It's just a word I'm using to describe. So if you've got... Anyways, you've got these systems. However, check this out. There's an old tale. I think it actually is a shaman tale. But it's an old adverb, adage, whatever you want to call it. But there's always been that story of you have two wolves inside of you. A light and a dark, a good and a bad. The concept of the shoulder angel and the shoulder devil. Ugh. And I constantly hear it all the time. Which wolf do you decide to feed? Which wolf do you decide to feed? There's actually a song by... Wow, I love this band. I just can't ever seem to remember their name. It's quite popular. Heavy metal screamo band. Anyways, The girl, literally, the lady sings about having a pig and a wolf inside of you. There's the pig and then there's a wolf, and it's like the dual conflict of existence, of duality. But the story, I don't know if it actually does or it should, talk about how there are two wolves and you talk about which one to feed, but it doesn't tell you necessarily kill them. It's an interesting game of balance. It's an interesting game of balance because it's like both wolves are you. It's like two sides of the same coin. It's not two external forces. It's me and me. So if you're choosing to starve a wolf for a while, okay, let's make some sense. Let's say, for instance, we'll minimize it to a decision. I have, say, $10. And I know maybe it's the last $10 I have until paycheck. And then I find a homeless man or something and sitting in the fast food restaurant with me. Now, obviously, you get a choice. Do I choose to spend all of it on myself, or can I choose to spend it on him? Or a mutualistic where it's both of us kind of thing. That's where it's three wolves. Nobody else talks about the third wolf. The balance. So you could completely choose feed myself or feed them, or an option that feeds us both. Well, you sit there and think about it. Ultimately, I'm kind of getting over my head. I don't know. This one's getting a little conflicted in my head. This one was going to be a channeled message, but it's like I wanted to write down part of a story. I'm just trusting that'll work. So I'm overthinking it. So imagine you have two halves of yourself, which we always do. It always feels like there's an internal conflict. We always feel like it's a challenge of whether or not to do the right thing. When I do air quotations, again, that's my signal for fluid. When I say the right thing, I mean that word is very flexible, just like fluid. So I'm not concrete. This one option is, I'm just trying to get it to be more fluid, more open. I'm starting to lose connection here with my words. But you get yourself in this conflict. And you're like, all right. Well, then say you take that conflict inwards. And now you actually have a decision for yourself. I have money and I want to purchase something I want. Not necessarily need. Now you could sit there and again, then you get divided anytime you have a choice. Your heart and your mind get divided in two. And then sometimes they even divide even further. So you sit there and you're like, okay, well maybe I want to buy a new video card. Yeah, it's expensive, but it's something I want and also could use and need. Let's say it's something my computer actually does need. Sure, the one that's in there is okay, but it needs a new one. It needs an update. So now I have a choice. Spend the money on something I want, even though it's not practical. Technically, because we're taught money is supposed to be used for specific things, and blah, 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 blah. It's supposed to be used for a specific purpose. Alright, at least that's how I was raised. So, I learned buying stuff for yourself is not what you're supposed to do. But then it's like, but I really want this. So now you're conflicted. You're conflicted because a system in you was running that's saying, no, we don't need this, so we shouldn't spend the money. But then there's another system in you running that's saying, well, I want this. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something. I want this. It will help me. It's beneficial. Maybe, no, it won't make me money. Maybe it's superfluous. But I want this. It's something I could use, and I know I would benefit from it. Whether it's just making my video games look better, whether it's making my computer run better. Logically, maybe to someone else it doesn't make sense, but to me, if that decision makes sense, do it. So now you're at this waging war of, I want it, but I don't want it. Should I get it? Should I not get it? And then you have to physically decide which wolf to feed, which decision to feed. Which system do you want to feed? Because then, oftentimes we make a decision, and then another system kicks in, and it's like, oh my god, we shouldn't have made that decision. Kind of thing. So, systems. It's what I'm trying to get to. So now let's take that on a macro scale and blow it up. Take it, instead of being an eternal system, let's look at the system that we live in. Now, I know how it's going to sound, and I will change the tone at the end. But we live in a society of a really effed up system. Everything seems to be a system of self-sacrifice. For instance, work, jobs. We give up our time, which in reality is the only resource we even have. Nothing else exists outside of that. The one true resource we have is time. That's our power, attention, and time. Excuse me, I probably should have paused the camera. I did not expect that. That was gross. So the one resource we have is time. Okay, which is essentially our power, our energy. So we give it to this system called a job. Well, logically, it makes sense, logically. I come in, I do a task, and I get a paycheck. Well, there's nothing wrong with that system. Actually, in fact, it sounds like a very solid system. But then you realize that system is not the true system. The system is, I work and put out twice as much amount of work for a certain amount of money, which somebody else gets to deem for me. So I'm letting someone else tell me my worth. I'm only worth $17 an hour. And then it becomes a scale factor. Well, then I gotta go to college. And then we raise that number based off how much you know. And that's how much you're worth, is how much you know. So now we're going into a structural system of a hierarchy. You have to know this much to be able to make this much money. Okay, well, it kind of makes sense. The system isn't necessarily out of balance just yet. Well then this is where it gets crazy. Well, then you gotta go to college. Okay, but it's not free. Well, okay, that kind of makes sense. In fact, it's almost pretty much unaffordable. Okay, I guess that makes sense. It's kind of making less sense, but okay. Okay. And then, so there are those who do get to go with their parents get to pay for them. Okay, so now it's starting to segregate and create individualism and separation. Because now there are those who get to go to college and there are those who don't. And then there are those who get to go to college because of ABC, whether they put themselves through it, whether they're allowed to, and then they get their degree. Well, then that's supposed to guarantee you a job, right? Well, it doesn't. So now I've sunk all my money and my time and energy into a college degree while quite possibly working through a job at 40 hours a week just to be able to survive in order to make a paycheck to work this system and be able to feed myself. Well, then working at a school or going to school to better the system, better myself to work better in the system. So by the time kids get out of college, people get out of college, they're 30, 40,000, even more. They could have bought a fucking car. Which, by the way, a car is as much as a college tuition. Which you also need a college tuition, or you need a car to get a college tuition. So now we're starting to beat a dead horse. So now you're taking these systems and adding them next to each other, and you're kind of like, well, now it's developing a serious system of unfairness. And then we're just told that's just how it's supposed to be. Okay, and then we live in the system, we do our best to survive and try to just exist. Well, then the system's getting worse, and worse, and worse. And it's breaking down further, and further, and further. As an example, cost of living goes up. Prices of everything goes up. Every year, I feel like things go up $1. Everything, or at least every 2 years, everything goes up $1. It's actually like an algorithmic, systemic, I don't know where I was going with that. So like every couple of years, everything goes up $1, except salary. In fact, my last job, I bounced between 3 different stores. I worked at the same store for 4 years, which got me up to about $17 an hour, $17, $18 an hour. That's the system. I stayed in the same job, I gained knowledge, I got money. However, this is where the system starts to break down. Because the manager likes money, he created a system, or there is a system installed, where every couple of years, once an employee gets to $20 to $30, they get fired. That's actually a normal system within everything. Because businesses want to keep making money, they fire their highest grossing employee. Well, okay, hold on. I'm worth $30 an hour because I worked hard and I got that knowledge. I put in the time. Then you get fired and then you're back down to $17 an hour and you're like, what do you mean? Well, the system says, the system I worked in says, I worked in this job for so long and I have this much knowledge. You should pay me fucking $30. And they're like, no. But then you take the job because we have to. Well, yes, Adam, that's all great. This is all a great and broken system. Okay. Well, then you take military. You're promised all this great money, all this great time. We'll pay for all your life, and life is great when you're in the military. But then the second you're out and you're done, life is absolute fucking shit. You're trash. And I don't mean that in a, I think all veterans are trash. No, that's what the government thinks. I had a veteran friend who was one of the kindest, smartest, gentlest men I've ever met. Like, he was a genuine, authentic person. But due to the system he was in, he was fucking destroyed. Half of his body didn't work. The man couldn't even, and I don't mean to embarrass him, but the man couldn't take a shit on a regular schedule. Like, that's how bad his body got destroyed. Destroyed. The government, the military destroyed it. He gave his life, his body, his time for this country. You know what they did? Nothing. He gets a small severance check that eventually runs out. And now he's disabled and now he can't get a job. And he does have a job, but he can't work it because he's disabled. His body is broken. So they expect you to go in, they give you all these great benefits, they blow you up, make you smell good. I don't know why I was going to say that. That was weird. And then once they're done with you, they spit you out and toss you in the streets. That's another broken system. So now, why would I go and fight for the military? Promises. Promises of money. Promises of fame, riches, and glory. It's a trap. Okay? Car insurance. I mean, I could sit here and go on and on. There are numerous layers of faulty systems. Okay? Now, first of all, you're like, alright, Adam, that's great and all, but it's the system that runs our world. What am I supposed to just stop? Tell me the system's a problem? You're right. No, I'm not telling you the system's a problem. Here's the twist. You're the problem. I'm the problem. We're the problem. The system's in place, because no matter what, there's going to be a system. That's unfortunately one of the two sides of the coin. For reality, there has to be a system. There is something somewhere of laws governing something somewhere. That's why the face of the earth doesn't just spin off and everything becomes cosmic dust. There is a law of the universe, or laws of the universe that are holding it together. However, our perception is what gets to change it. That's what I'm saying, is the system gets changed based off our perception. based off which wolf you get to feed. I quit my job. For those who know, I quit my job, which logically was really stupid. I haven't actually been able to find another job. But the reason that led me to it is because I was just so tired of a system. For instance, this is one of the systems. And again, I always feel sketchy talking about it because I said something on TikTok and someone actually tried to get me reported. I said something about a real topic. Something uncomfortable people don't like to hear. So someone tried to report me and get me taken down. So when I talk about it, it's always terrifying to mention. But due to this system, I was suicidal. I've been suicidal for months, and notice I said I have been. It is something I'm still struggling with. Why? Because I saw this system. I saw this broken ass system. And I couldn't function anymore. And then they make you feel like you're broken. Because you can't function in their system. I wake up every fucking day, go to work, unhappy, eat, sleep, pretend to be okay, and then go home and pretend to be okay. I was not fulfilled. Sure, I had money and I had a full belly, but the friends I had there weren't friends. They were pretending. Just like everyone else. It's a game of pretending. We all show up and act like we're okay and pretend that everything's alright, and it's a world of make-believe. We're all here working together because we live in a faulty system and we have to band together, and we're all just doing our best, and that makes us kind of relate. But secretly, deep down, everyone's just here for themselves. Or at least that's how I feel. So even though I had a job, I had friends, I had social interaction, I had social engagement, I essentially had everything. No, I didn't have $1,000. I didn't have some crazy amount of money. I had just enough to get by. I had a bunch of cool stuff, like I had purchased items. It's like I wasn't poor. I could still have fun. I could still purchase games and collectibles and things I wanted. And sure, I couldn't go out and buy a $3,000 computer, but over time I was able to build one. But I was extremely unhappy, extremely unfulfilled. Why? Because I lived in the system that was broken. My manager was a scumbag, my friends weren't really my friends, and I was wearing myself out for a paycheck that doesn't fucking care about me. The system doesn't care about me. The job didn't give two shits. From that job, I almost got fired 2 or 3 times. One of them being, I tried to report someone who was bullying me. But the investigation ended up firing back on me. And I actually got pulled out and screamed at. Like, the manager actually yelled at me. And my coworker sitting out there watching this whole thing just like, that's not okay. Well, then I went and talked to the manager because the owner's the one who pulled me aside. I went and talked to the manager because the owner had told me the manager was upset with me and actually didn't want me at her store. Like, I wasn't allowed to work at that store because she didn't want me there. And I told her this, and I'm like, I'm sorry, whatever I did to piss you off. She goes, whoa. What are you talking about? I was like, well, so-and-so, I'm not going to say names, so-and-so pulled me aside and said, hey, you were mad at me. And she looks at me and goes, no, Adam. No. I've been fighting for you to come over to my store. Whatever he said was not true. I want you here. And I'm like, wow, I'm working for a piece of shit. But let's a little less objective, or a little more objective, whatever the word is. But again, he's just another part of a system that's broken. That was anger coming out that's no longer really there. This actually happened like 3 to 4 years ago. So whether or not I believe him to be a great person or not, that's irrelevant. Because reality is he's just a part of another system, because that's how he's trained too. I can't really blame him. That's how we're all trained. We're trained to maximize profits, maximize money, and maximize effort. So in that reality, I was no longer maximizing effort. I was no longer necessary. But it's because they don't see people anymore. They just see paychecks and they see numbers. They put a man out on the streets. They don't care. They don't give two fucks. You can work there for 20 years. They don't care. Whether it's 1 year or 20 years. My parents, both of them worked a cushiony job. They worked at Chase, which is a really good company. And by saying good company, I mean structurally sound. It's been around for years. You know, you want to invest in a company you know that's going to be around. Well, guess what? They got fired after 20 years of dedication. For no reason at all. Me, you could have said it was my fault. I could have technically... I mean, there were things I did that led to my own termination. But them, they just got let go. They just got let go. Plain and simple. They just look, hey, sorry, company's downsizing, bye. So, because of a system that's faulty, my parents' lives just came to an abrupt end. Well then, because it's a faulty system, they decided, on purpose, they didn't make a system to help people. All those military veterans, yeah, there's all this great shit about, oh look, there's this program, that if you go and sign up for our program, we can help you. Well, how about you just give us the fucking benefits without making us jump through the fucking hoops? I'm sorry, I'm getting irritated. But it's getting ridiculous. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we'll offer you help. It's a whole system of manipulation. And again, I'm sitting here crowing about the system's not the problem, because it's getting back to it. So we're running off a system of manipulation and fear. Because, well, what happens if you don't follow the rules? We're gonna venture into that and actually how to break down the system. Let's go into school. Let's go talk about school. Because again, everything is just a macro version of micro. So, for instance, you can look at a school system. That is essentially a micro version of society. Inside of school, it's almost like a petri dish. A school is a petri dish of societal rules. That they structure the rules in school, and then based on how it functions in school, is how they restructure the rules in society. So then, based off of that, so essentially what the point of that is, if you want to see how society runs, you can look at how a school functions. Okay? So, where was I going with that? I kind of lost my train of thought. Well, school's just a huge broken system. We go there, and we're taught. We're taught things. And we're taught that these are things we need to know. And we're taught many things. Like you could sit here and talk about it for years. But it's a broken system. Another broken system. In fact, the systems are made broken on purpose. As, science experiments. That's why stuff like this exists. It's almost like a giant science experiment. So we see it all the time. It's a school system of bullying. Okay? People get bullied. Kids can bring guns to school. Kids bring weapons. Kids bully, kids hurt. Why? Because either they're getting bullied or they have a bad family home. And we crow about having these wonderful, wonderful systems. But yet these systems breed killers. Why in the fuck do we have a school system that's so degraded that it's actually getting kids to bring guns to school and hurt other kids? So the solution is a patch. Let's start an anti-bullying campaign. No, that's not That's not the solution. Because you still have a system that's churning out bullies. You still have a system that's churning out psychopaths, killers. So instead of fixing the system, they apply a patch. They apply a band-aid. Well, let's start an activist campaign. Words, I can't. I'm doing this video despite the words. I'm trying to get my point across anyways. The point is, the system punishes the wrong people. It's a system of faulty lies, and that's why it's not working. So, for instance, how many times I could tell you I've gotten in trouble for trying to be honest. There's one job I got fired. Now, obviously, it's my fault, and to a degree. My energy was incorrect. I did not approach the situation properly. But when I got fired from that job, I was so confused. I had this guy who was actually picking fights with me because he was making my job harder. Like, I was trying to... Basically, I was doing all the work. And he was doing nothing. And I actually had, like, video proof. Like, camera proof. And I got to the point I actually set up physical proof. And even the manager knew, but he did nothing about it. So eventually the guy actually approached me one day, and I finally said, look, dude, I'm not doing it. I'm sick and tired of doing your job. And of course, confliction started. So it actually got to the point one day, he's physically pushing on me, like physically pushing me, trying to get me to fight him. So I went in, and of course I was angry about the situation, so the anger came out in the conversation. But I had told the manager that. Now again, it's the way I communicated, but I end up getting fired instead. So you're like, okay. Well, I find out later, the guy got fired twice from the same company. So it's not that I was wrong. I was right. That person was, quote unquote, not great, if you want to put it that way. Again, this is not about judging other people. I'm trying not to... It's working through a process here. So just follow along. So whether or not that person did that to me, the system broke. I actually tried to report something like I should have. And whether or not I did it correctly, I'm the one who gets punished. Anytime you try to report an error in the system's like, nope, that's not okay. So the system punishes you. Same thing at school. You try to report a bully. Like, for instance, here's a good example. I think I've told this story a few times on my channel. I had a friend who was actually cutting himself in middle school. And just one day we were on the bus chatting, just having a day, and I didn't think anything of it. Next day I get pulled into the office. Adam, do you know why you're here? No. Well, the little girls on the bus yesterday heard your conversation yesterday about trying to start the library on fire. It's like, what? Even as a kid, I knew this was fucked up. What I found out later... Well, you know what, let me tell you the story, and then let me tell you the resolution. So, they were like, yeah, you were accused of threatening to burn down the school. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? I'm literally like, no. What? They're like, well, your friend came in and told us yesterday. I was like, what friend are you talking about? Like, what? I found out my friend I was sitting on the bus with was having suicidal thoughts. And he ended up getting pulled into the office and talking to a counselor, and he brought my name up and said I was telling my friend and blah, blah, blah. But he said, hey, please don't tell my friend I pulled him into this. So essentially, the principal concocted the lie about the girls hearing me talk about burning the school. But the fun thing was, it wasn't even my suggestion. It was him. He was the one, he's like, well, if you're ever really mad, just go to the back of the library and start a book fire. Kind of like he's already thought about it. So I get roped in, I didn't even do anything. I got suspended for 3 days. When I got home, I do apologize, I don't think I can get through this next part without tearing up, but when I got home, you can bet your ass, because my dad had to come pick me up from school because I got suspended. You can bet I definitely didn't get abused, luckily. Not this time. But I definitely got screamed at for hours. And when I say hours, this time it actually wasn't metaphorical. I remember sitting up at a computer until 3 o'clock in the morning with my dad screaming at me, telling me he's going to send me to a mental institution if I didn't tell him what was wrong. And I told him the truth. I'm like, Dad, it wasn't me. He didn't believe me. So a 10-year-old kid almost went to a mental institution for something that wasn't his fault. So what they do is they treat the kid like a problem, and then they try to tell the kid he's broken and try to fix the kid. When in reality, it's the school system that's broken. But nobody wants to fix that. No. Instead, let's just keep breaking the kids. Let's keep making broken people to function in our broken society. The Declaration of Independence, and I know this is a very hard turn. The Declaration of Independence was published in 1776. The Constitution was directly after that. So this Constitution, that is essentially the core rules of our society, is over 250 years old. But yet at the same time, we have AI technology that can literally create people, fake people. You want to explain to me why we have 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the future? Unfortunately, the system is very necessary. But the problem is it's a broken system. So it's like, alright, after all of this, how do we fix it? You stop feeding the system. You don't try to fight it. It's not the problem. The system is not the problem. Because ironically, believe it or not, within the system, there are actually programs and functions. There's essentially a spot in the system for people who fight against the system. And ironically, I know it doesn't make sense, but fighting actually creates the energy of resistance, which resistance actually creates energy. That's how we get electricity. So think of it this way. So now they've developed this system, and they've developed a system to fight the system. So now you're in the system to fight the system. I'm against the system because it's garbage and it's trash and it's creating resistance against the system, which just strengthens the system. Wait, what? Yeah, resistance strengthens the connection. I know it seems like it's ass backwards, so feeding into the hate also of this system is ironically feeding the system. So you're like, okay, what the hell do I do? Well, you stop feeding the system. Think of it this way. I mean, obviously, everyone can't just quit their job today. I mean, sure, society would absolutely fall apart, but that would create an amount of chaos that we do not need. What I'm saying is breaking the system naturally in small fragments. Think of it this way. The power of no. People make you forget the power of individualism. But back in the days, do you remember what a union was? Now I believe it's a faulty system and it's no longer good. It's being used for evil. But in the beginning, union was meant to be good. Sort of. But the problem is it's another system to fight the system. So instead of trying to change the system, they developed another system to fight the system. That's not how it works. Think of it this way. If every kid at school, going back to the school system, or maybe even a whole grade, let's say all of the seniors decided, you know what? Senior skip day is going to go for a whole month. Yeah, you know what? As a collective, the whole senior class just decides we're not going to show up. What are you going to do? Well, there's no more senior class. You physically can't hold the class anymore. Well, what they do then is they implore systems to punish you. Well, you're going to get a bad grade. Okay. And you're going to fail. Okay. And then these systems use fear. Okay, well then if that doesn't work, you're going to flunk and you're going to have to repeat. Okay. And then if that doesn't work, they get to the point they call in the parents. Well, if you don't start doing good in school, we're going to call your parents. That's when the fear sets in. You're like, I realized at a young age I broke the system. Because it got to that point, after my dad screaming at me time and time again, that was not the first time. Wasn't the last. So you know what? I beat the system. I stopped caring. He could sit there, he could scream at me, he could hit me, he could do whatever the fuck he wanted to do. I no longer cared. When I was 14, he forced me to take antidepressants, and I kept telling him no. Finally got to the point, I looked him dead in the face and go, make me. Hit me as much as you want, scream at me as much as you want, threaten me as much as you want. But unless you try to physically force these pills in my mouth, you can't make me. And guess what? The system broke down. My parents got scared of me because they couldn't control me. I wouldn't listen to them. No matter how much they screamed at me, no matter how much they hit me, their system broke down and it scared the shit out of them. And they want to sit there and call you broken, like you're a psychopath. Well, what else do you do? When you have a dad sitting there screaming at you, you go blank. I would do just like this. I eventually got to the point I no longer cared if he screamed at me or hit me. I'd be like, okay. He would literally be sitting there screaming at the top of his lungs, trying to get a reaction, and I'd just be like, uh-huh. And then he'd get louder and scream more. You're fucking broken. What is wrong with you? I was like, yep, I'm broken. Cool. Are we done now? Fuck you, get out of here. Okay, have a good day. Now there's loads of unhealthy habits and psychological trauma that should be sorted. I'm not trying to tell you how I did it was correct. I'm not trying to say what I'm doing is correct. I'm just saying I'm trying something else, guys. The system is broken and I can't keep doing this. So now the question is, which one's going to break first? Me or the system? The answer is the system. Or you know what? No, the question is, which one's going to break now? Because the truth is, I've already broken time and time again. So, just a little added to add at the end. I know things are scary. The reality is right now we're in another depression. Whenever we hit an economic crash or a depression, that's because the system couldn't keep up. The system was broken, the system failed, and it crashed. Yeah, it's really tough, but think of it this way. Anytime you have a system crash, what happens? You restart it. Okay, what happens if you can't restart it? You build a new one. Unfortunately, sometimes the system needs to crash. I know it's scary. I want to keep talking, but I can't go past an hour. But in order for something to be built, we have to struggle. For instance, struggle is when we get most of our modern sciences. Is when we need something. Is when a need arises. When a problem or a conflict arises, that's when a need comes through. And somebody comes through with a solution. Our system is broken. After the next crash, we're going to have to find a new way to put it back together. The same way doesn't work anymore. The best way to put it is it's time to start completely fresh. Whenever you have a video game, and I'm going to start talking a lot faster because, like I said, I got 15 minutes. Whenever you've got a video game, you've got two options. You release a video game, of course it's broken, you've got some bugs, and you have people test it and work on it. And then once it's finally released, you release it, and there's still some bugs. you work on it and you test it and you kind of work on it and move forward. But then after a couple of years, you discover a serious bug in the coding of the flawing of the system itself. But as of this point, the system's already been institutionalized, essentially. And the system's been around for so long that it's a lot easier just to patch the system instead of trying to make a whole new one. So now you have this video game that you're just trying to patch and 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 patch. Because what happens then is sometimes when people go back to redo the actual video game itself, they redo the whole coding to fix the bugs, and then they lose thousands of people. Because now the game is completely different. It's not what it used to be. So now the original fans are like, oh, I don't like this game, I don't want to play it anymore. But then there's also the upside of you get a whole bunch of new players, though. So there's always the conflict of whether or not you should actually update a game. Release a game and just kind of let it be, and let it be fun with its bugs or its glitches or whatever, try to patch it. And then when you find a really bad bug, either scrap it completely, go back to zero, or just keep patching it. Well, the problem is we've been in a repetitious cycle of failure and patching, failure and patching. Eventually, guys, you just have to buy a new boat. There's too many holes in this boat, and you can't keep fucking fixing it. Alright? We have to let it sink. We have to let it sink.